We do not consider ourselves Patriots South. That's one of the first things Cal McNair said when he hired Nick Caserio. We do not consider ourselves Patriots South. A lot of people rolled their eyes, including me, when he said that, and rightfully so. And now as we shift from the end of the Lovie Smith era / David Culley era / into the B.O.B. era to what we hope are better days ahead, the DeMeco Ryans era, the question should be asked, have the Texans gone from copying the Patriot Way to the 49er way? A lot of people coming over from San Francisco, and a lot of people are wondering, are the Texans copying San Francisco now instead of New England? And if they are, what exactly does that mean? And what does that look like? It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app. Let's get into this. Did the Texans used to try to copy the Patriot Way? I think yes and no would be the answer. When Bill O'Brien came here, they 100% tried to copy the Patriot Way. Bill O'Brien was there for a few years. He got to work with some of the best array of talent that we've seen, one of the best teams that we've ever seen. And Bill O'Brien seemed convinced that he was going to copy Bill Belichick, whether it was at the podium, whether it was with his mannerisms, whether it was with the dryness. And unfortunately for him, he did not have the ability to, A, have the game plan offense that Tom Brady had, the week-to-week game plan offense, and B, he really didn't have close to the football smarts that Bill Belichick had when it came to putting together a game plan. So it was a disaster from the very beginning. So yes, Bill O'Brien tried to copy the Patriot Way in many ways, and at times it looked extremely awkward. They went far enough to think that they could bring Ryan Mallett in from New England and turn him into a starter. You saw Brian Hoyer. Quarterbacks were going to the line of scrimmage, and they were basically being asked to be Tom Brady and read defense. And they brought in Jack Easterby, who had no business being a personnel guy, but because he followed around Bill Belichick and took some notes and read some scriptures to players, he was trusted to oversee football operations. And he would tell Cal and Hannah McNair and everybody about notes that he took on Bill Belichick and the impact he had in New England. And meanwhile, people in New England were kind of laughing, saying, what is this guy doing as a personnel guy? Jack's not a personnel guy. You remember Bill Belichick saying that. So there was a time when the Patriot Way was something that they tried to copy here at almost a hilarious level, with Bill O'Brien trying to be Bill Belichick and Jack Easterby just trying to be a competent non-team chaplain member of an organization. So it was almost laughable. But did Nick Caserio try to copy it? Because that was obviously important to Cal McNair, because he went out of his way when he hired Nick Caserio to say, we are not Patriots South. A lot of people rolled their eyes. Hell, before DeMeco Ryans was hired, John McClain, who's been around from the very beginning of this franchise, he said that one of his rules for hiring a coach would have been that Nick Caserio can't hire anyone from New England. So he still had his concerns about Nick Caserio trying to copy the Patriot Way. I think the criticism of Nick and the copying of the Patriot Way, I think that it's overstated, but I don't think it's non-existent. You had Rex Burkhead on this team for whatever reason. I feel safe in saying that had Rex Burkhead been a member of the Jets in their running back arsenal, that Nick Caserio would have somehow found it in his heart to have not let Rex Burkhead be on the field last year, or at least at some point in the season to have released him and moved on. That's just how I feel. I don't feel that he would have traded for Marcus Cannon the way and he did and crossed his fingers that he would be the right tackle and not Titus Howard. So there have been some things that Nick Caserio has done, but the difference between Nick Caserio copying the Patriot Way and Bill O'Brien copying the Patriot Way is that Nick Caserio was there from the very beginning. Nick Caserio was a part of that thing for nearly 2 decades. Bill O'Brien went to New England for a few years and all of a sudden acted like he had the secrets to building a football team, and he had the secrets to creating some sort of dynasty and larger than life type of football feeling, when he just wasn't capable of it. But he kept trying, and he got Patriots cocky. I remember I had one of my first bosses, he came from one of the most successful stations in the country. It was called The Ticket. And he used to always have a saying about people who came from The Ticket that were maybe spares, that had no business, being prominent members of stations. He would say, yeah, that guy's ticket cocky. Or he would say, I'm a little bit too ticket cocky. Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby, they were Patriot cocky. And because I think the Texans were fascinated, and they were drinking the tea at the time, the Texans were bought into that. And they were trying to copy the Patriot way. Nick Caserio, though, was there the whole time. And Nick Caserio, he never really made a significant hire from New England. Who knows? Maybe if he would have had his choice, he would have done that this time around. But he went with DeMeco Ryans. And right now, it seems like a really good mix, Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans. And we really haven't seen Nick copy the Patriot way. I can promise you no one in New England was going to hire David Culley and no one was going to hire Lovie Smith. But Nick Caserio did, maybe to get through those situations, and then he would have brought in a New England guy, but he never did it. So copying the Patriot way, it looks like this. It looks like a blowhard with a limited impact on what they actually did, going to an organization and thinking that he invented football and thinking that he is the new sheriff in town and everyone should listen to him. And even when he has shortcomings, everything else matters. It all matters. And just follow me. I'll take you home. See Matt Patricia, see Josh McDaniels, see Bill O'Brien. And a lot of times every time really outside of New England, every time it comes tumbling down, which brings me to the San Francisco thing. Copying the Patriot way is a recipe for disaster. It's an absolute recipe for disaster. It doesn't work. Hasn't worked anywhere. Hasn't. But is copying San Francisco that bad of a thing? Think about it. We have a lot of examples of that Kyle Shanahan way of thinking, and you can connect the pipeline. We have a lot of examples of it working. Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, Robert Saleh has gone and done his thing. So if you're copying San Francisco, what the hell does that really even mean? Because the difference in copying San Francisco and the difference in copying the Patriot way is the Patriot way, and I'm sure Nick would take exception to this because I'm sure it's a little more fond to him, but the people who have tried to copy the Patriot way, it's really just their way or the highway. And a lot of times it's them over-romanticizing stuff that shouldn't matter as much as they think it does, and overstating what their role was in creating it. San Francisco, there's all types of examples of how this works. There's not really one formula. So if the Texans are copying San Francisco, my question would be, is that the worst thing? And what the hell does that even mean? Because Kyle Shanahan has had multiple guys go on to have success, and you can connect him to that. So if the Texans are copying San Francisco, I need to know what the hell exactly that looks like. Because if they are, I'm okay with it. I'm very much okay with it. I don't know what that looks like offensively. I don't know what it looks like defensively. I think there's a lot of things that it could mean. It's pretty easy to narrow down what the Patriot way looks like, and it's pretty easy to point to every example of it failing. But San Francisco, you can't find one clear thing that happens when teams try to copy it. So are the Texans trying to copy it? I don't necessarily think so, because I don't think there's anything that can be copied. I think what the difference between the San Francisco way and the Patriot way is the Patriot way. You had two guys who possessed an infinite amount of knowledge, and it's not something you can teach. It's not something you can be around and teach. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Those are just two football geniuses of our time. Kyle Shanahan, he's one of the football geniuses of our time, but I think Kyle Shanahan enjoys spreading information and consuming information. I think DeMeco Ryans is just one branch off of that. So if the Texans are going from copying or attempting to copy the Patriot way to the San Francisco way, sign me up for it. I'm excited to see what the F it looks like. Subscribe, comment. If you think I'm nuts, if you agree, just keep it rolling. Going to have a live stream tonight at 9 o'clock. Get your questions in. Bring your game. We're talking about C.J. Stroud potentially as the number 2 pick. The internet went nuts at that question. I thought Seth Payne had an interesting observation about C.J. Stroud that makes me, the podium critic, pretty happy. So bring your game, 9 p.m. Central. I'll see you there. Subscribe, like. Let's ride along. Number 1 source for Texans daily digital content. It is The Locker Room. Hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610. Appreciate you. No matter what happens, we're all in this together.